Every video game feels like it's a Souls-like these days, right? There's some type of dodging mechanic, parrying mechanic, or some type of difficulty scale that makes it so if you play the harder difficulty, you are more of a gamer. In today's Unedited Yap, I wanted to go over the recent upbringing of difficulty markers and how games should be difficult because it makes you more of a gamer. This is kind of a response to the whole Penguins video that recently went up, but also it's a discussion in and of itself around board games, traditional games, and card games in general. We are a Magic the Gathering channel, so I want to hone in around that, but also have a larger discussion because obviously many of you that play Magic the Gathering have experience and are experiencing gaming outside of it as well, which is a great thing when it comes to engaging in hobbies. Check out my last video on the Unedited Yap series. Regardless though, when it comes to difficulty in video games, I want to start there and then maybe pose it into video games and Magic the Gathering in general, because it's a larger social issue there. But when it comes to video games, as I mentioned, everything feels like it's a Souls-like these days. And that's not inherently a bad thing, but there are negative things that can come out of it. There is a sense of achievement when it comes to beating a Souls-like game. A lot of people aren't interested in that type of stuff, and that's okay. I personally am. I'm a Souls-like fiend. Anything with the Souls-like tag on it on Steam, I'm probably checking out. Right now, I'm checking out this really cool like indie game that's like a crab adventure. You're like underwater, but like you're like a crab that had his shell taxed away because some queen is now taxing everything. You can't afford to keep your thing, so you're like going after the queen and all that stuff. It's fun. There's dodging and parrying. Anyway, it's a fun little small game, and that's what attracts me to it, because there's a sense of accomplishment coming across a villain or an enemy, just whatever common obstacle you can in games like these, that again, you can't just level up your way around. Of course, there gets to a point for many of you Elden Ring players where you become so high level that many bosses and enemies that you've leveled up beyond are just like really easy. You can dodge past and just almost one hit or couple hit, or you might have OTK builds, and that's okay. You can get to that point. That's what the game is built around, but many games don't have that for you. For example, in Clair Obscur Expedition 33, there is a mechanic where your damage is actually capped off at 9,999, which can be further removed by things that happen in the story. That's a big element of what happens in it, and that's something that many of you Expedition 33 players might want to explore. But that's a cool system of like kind of furthering yourself. There are areas where enemies are so high in terms of their health that you have to go through the game to get to this section that removes that cap or whatever. And I'll, again, let you players go through that. And again, that adds to the sense of accomplishment. The difficulty in the game exists, and there are mechanics that allow you in these games through parrying and dodging to beat these games at level 1 and all that stuff. We see these YouTube challenges, and they kind of push some people away. The casual audience may actually just be here for the story. And in that light, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 has a beautiful story. It's a great story about grief and loss and how people manage that. There's so many artistic influences as well. It's overall a beautiful game. And when it comes to, in comparison to something like Elden Ring, the game is also telling a really vast and ancient story. Elden Ring, Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, they're all telling intricate stories, but you have to discover them through yourself. They're not outwardly told to you in cutscenes. You have to find pages and books and random pieces of text that you're going to string together with some of the cutscenes. And that's why you have, Vati Vidya and stuff like that, these big channels that have blown up over this type of lore. And that's part of that attraction, that difficulty, that seeking out, and the way people get their own dopamine hit. And where I find the kind of disillusionment is not only with the rise of Souls-like games and the accomplishment that those games bring, how you can approach many games in different scenarios, right? Like with different games in the past that were like stealth games, think of the Splinter Cell series or something like the Dishonored series, where you could approach different scenarios in different ways and you gained a sense of accomplishment through how you did it, through, just going in and being a juggernaut or climbing up through the roofs and being secretive. And in many ways, that's what these Souls-like games present. You could be at like level 1 or low level and like parry and dodge your way through everything, or you could grind out, play through your gamut, get the maybe not the best weapons because you haven't progressed through, but just high stats and then power through a boss. Different ways to approach something. And you have your different ways to do that, but that may not be the gameplay loop that people are looking for. They may just be here for the story. Again, that is the disillusionment. The common design of games these days, the trend that we see, is going towards making things more difficult, but also in many ways actually more accessible to many players. And it's not just upfront accessibility. With Lies of P, we saw that there is a uniform difficulty. This is as hard and as easy as it's getting. By the way, that is another amazing game, by the way. Souls-like or not, it is a great reimagining of the Pinocchio story. And through the DLC, we see the addition of an easier mode. And some of these things like are kind of adding different multipliers to things. So you might get an easier mode where, your parry timing's larger, enemy health pools are smaller, you have more health drops. And we see that in more difficult modes. I think of the Dead Space modes where in the extreme difficulty, you can only save like a numerous amount of times, like, a handful amount of times, and you have to go through the game without doing that. And there are different trophies for you completionists out there. There are plenty of games out there where you can get trophies or different achievements for beating the game without dying once at all. And sometimes the reward for that is very meager in some people's eyes. It might just be a really cool cosmetic, but for those completionists, it's like a badge of honor. So for the average gamer, it's great to be able to go through the game, experience the story as it is, and you may not ever get that cosmetic, and that's fine. You have to do the extra challenge to get that. You still get the primary experience of the game, which I think is the point. At normal difficulty, I believe you should be able to experience the game as intended. That's what it should be. And honestly, I also am open to an easier mode. If you're not maybe as maybe reactively or skillfully able to get through the mechanics in the game, make it easier, because if this story is there, and the big component of the game is story, again, like Expedition 33, where there's a lot of deep mechanics that you can master and things that you can level through and items you can find, that's great. But the story is a really great one to experience, then an easier mode is great. But when it's a little bit less cut and dry, but also there is an element to it where, again, in Dead Space, maybe the added difficulty adds to the horror of it. The idea that you could lose instantly at any spot, that challenge, that risk adds to the joy that you get through succeeding. There is value in something like harder difficulty. And I think games need to do a better job of incentivizing harder difficulty. You should just have a normal difficulty, the way the game was intended to experience, the easier difficulty that allows players to just maybe experience the pure story of it. But the harder difficulties should do better in incentivizing things. It shouldn't just be, more higher health, more enemies, whatever. Borderlands is a great way of kind of increasing difficulty, where you can increase the multipliers of different enemies, the health and the damage, but you get higher drop loot. And so that's a really great way to explore New Game Plus. And I think Borderlands does it in a really interesting way. The perfection or the execution of the Borderlands games as of late is a different conversation, but I like their approach to it. And again, New Game Plus is a more popular thing these days. People like the idea that they can purchase a game, continue playing it, and reap the rewards of something like this. Especially in something like Elden Ring, you have the idea where playing through a game multiple times is actually great, because certain weapons in the game you can actually only pick up once. So if you want to dual wield them, you actually have to play the game twice and then unlock different things and movesets through your dual wield. And so things like this are rewarded through difficulty, because the New Game Plus is obviously going to be more difficult in that. It's going to be higher difficulty, more health, more experience, but you do get actual discernible rewards by playing through it more. And that's where the pros and cons of many of these difficulties are important for not only game studios to understand, but gamers. Because a lot of people are turned off by difficulty. And that's fair too. Many of you only have a certain amount of time to play games, and that's okay. So that easier mode should exist. That accessibility should exist. And you shouldn't be forced to play higher difficulties in games either. Yes, the rewards are there, but to experience the game at its optimal level, you shouldn't have to get there. And some games are going to be designed that way from the rip. There's going to be the simplistic, whatever games that are like gotcha on your mobile that want you to keep playing the game. There are no barriers other than like maybe money. But then you have the other extreme that might be, the Ninja Gaidens of the world, the Dark Souls of the world, that are just meant to be difficult from the rip. Very punishing in terms of where their, your XP is handled and where your checkpoints are, and very punishing in terms of the reward system, the item discovery, how you can go through the game and completely miss whole areas and items that you just didn't know possible before, whole shortcuts that would have made your run a lot easier. These are things you can miss if you don't want to explore. And that's okay. I mean, if you take a look at a game series like the Doom series, where very commonly in the menu where you choose your difficulty, and I think the Wolfenstein series does this as well, where they have an associated picture, and it's like a picture of the Doom guy. And if you have it on normal, it's just a normal face. And the more difficult you get, it's like more beat up and bruised and like metal or whatever, right? Like you're doing something harder. But if you go to the easiest difficulty, it's like the Doom guy with a hat and like a pacifier on because you're like a baby. And it's a fun nod to that because, again, the Doom series doesn't necessarily have like deep lore. The more recent Doom games have included that, and they've retroactively added different pieces of lore. And, many of you, I think the channel is called like Gingy or something like that. They do. They recently done a series on a deep retrospective on Doom and a recent one on Fallout. For those of you who know, you can probably quote the series itself. But when it comes to these type of difficulty levels, it's very important to discern them from games that have story and don't. Because as I said, the reward structure is one thing. People's accessibility level is another. Another thing is where you have any story at all. And by the way, sorry, I cut there because my wife is kind of calling me. So I guess unedited yap, whatever. I did include a cut. My bad, y'all. But whether or not a story is involved is important because, again, Doom is all about run and gun action. And the more recent Doom games, as I mentioned, they do have a bit of a story involved, but it's more about that gameplay of, whether to execute an opponent or not, or destroy them with your gun and you get different rewards. And the gameplay loop is very engaging, but it's not so much about the surroundings necessarily. And so the difficulty can be more engaging in that way because the reward system is different. You don't have to pay so much attention to the details around you and focus more on the game mechanics. But again, there should be easier difficulties allowed. You are not less of a gamer because you don't play the harder difficulties out there. You're not less of a gamer because you don't enjoy the Souls-like games or you don't get them. There's plenty of games that I don't get. Me personally, I never grew up with Pokemon. I don't understand those games. I don't get the whole Pokemon hype. I played them after the fact, like maybe, but after I was after like I was a lot younger. I just didn't get them. I don't play them. I don't enjoy the Pokemon series. I think as a TCG player, I would love the Pokemon TCG. I just don't have the time for it. I acknowledge it. It's great. I probably, again, would like it, just not for me. And there's plenty of other game series out there that I know I would love if I played them. I just don't have the time for them right now. The Final Fantasy series is a big one as Magic the Gathering is collaborating with them now. I'm personally planning on playing like the Persona series down the line. I really want to play the Witcher series. I know I'm going to love those series, but especially someone like a game like The Witcher 3 where, my brother-in-law, he really loves the Witcher series. And yeah, 100%. I know I'm going to love that game based on like the formula of it. I just don't have the time to sink in these many hours into it. I sunk in like 70 hours into Clair Obscura because I loved exploring every little nook and cranny and all the grind elements of that game. And I don't know if that was a smart decision. I put in 70 hours of my life into that game. I work full time. Who has the time for that? You know what I mean? Like, it's so hard to balance all this stuff. And so when it comes to video games difficulty applications, right? So again, first and foremost, highlighting all my opinions here. I think difficulty should range. You're not less of a gamer for not playing a certain difficulty or not. And accessibility is very important in video games. And the factors of whether or not you should include different difficulty levels depend on your game's story, their mechanics, and the level of accessibility that you want to have. Now, when it comes to application in non-traditional video games, in board games, or in card games, difficulty is introduced in different ways. So for example, in board games, difficulty might be introduced through depth or in length of play, which also comes in through depth. So if you're thinking of like big war games and stuff, the Sushi Goes of the world are not going to be like Risk. And different players are going to love different types of mechanics in games. I personally, myself, don't mess with dice games. I'll play them. I'm a board gamer myself. If you invited me out to a board game night, I will give you the time and attention to play said game. I just don't like dice games. I don't like the randomness that they introduce, the whole idea of how 2d6 aren't technically random because you can never roll a 1, so they're not truly random or whatever. All that stuff combined, I just don't like dice games. I like when there is as much choice as possible, but of course, the more choices you introduce, the more optimization there is, the whole queen problem. And this is a situation that actually the distraction makers talked about. In a game where you can choose only queens, why would you choose anything else? Like in a chessboard, the queen is the best piece, can go diagonally any amount of direction, forward, backward, whatever. Why would you choose any other piece? Obviously, there's differences in terms of like, what the knight or the horse can do. But in a game like Magic the Gathering, that's adapted in the fact that you take the queens and you balance them through their mana cost, through their power toughness. So a Ragavan at 1 is very different than an 8 mana cost card that would be absolutely insane in 1. And that's how you balance the queens. And so through this, you add difficulty in terms of, okay, I want to play multiple queens in my deck. How do I do that? Through balancing curve and my mana curve, the amount of spells, removal, whatever. And so this adds to an added layer of accessibility for a lot of players where, you think about the ability for you as a player to get into a certain deck and master it. And I think that many players can do a better job when it comes to card games of opening up the avenues of access to getting into a deck. Many people have discords or sideboard guides, and get your bag, make it paid. But sometimes, not all content needs to be paid for. Some things can be available, and we should be allowing people to get into different decks and not make them as scary. It shouldn't be scary for many of you to play Storm and try and do well with it, or some type of combo deck in Pioneer and do well with it. It should be easy access. There should be videos out there that give you the breakdown as to how to get into it, and then you should be able to master it from there. You should be able to pilot it to some level of wins and not be scared about it, and access is a whole different thing. And so when it comes to playing Magic the Gathering, board games, non-traditional games, these difficulty levels I find are due to a lack of resources, which is a bit of a problem in any said community. We can do a better job of kind of striking a balance between accessible resources, free resources, and expert resources that might be paid for. So you can get into a game, but maybe to master it, you have to spend time watching a video or pay for a course when it comes to Magic the Gathering, get a sideboard guide and really understand actually, this is why I'm losing this matchup, because I'm not sideboarding in this card, or I'm actually playing in such a way that's allowing my opponent to beat me. And so these are the type of things that you can understand through spending some amount of resources in it. And that comes with video games as well, whether, be paying through your time. A certain boss or a game mechanic that you can't get around is only going to be beat by you spending time in it. So again, bring up Expedition 33. There's a couple enemies out there that are really hard to parry, but if you spend time, you can hear their tells. There are a lot of audio cues in the game that can help you parry and dodge better. And there's a lot of visual things that happen that can help you parry and dodge better, but you're only going to get that through playing the enemies over and over again, right? Playing the bosses over and over again. You may get it, and you might get lucky first time, first through. You might just win the game. And of course, in your game of Magic the Gathering, you come up against a deck that you've never beat before, and you might just beat them firsthand and generally get an understanding. They may go, land into this, and you're like, oh, okay, they played that card. That probably means they're trying to do this. I may not understand the payoff, but they're trying to ramp, or this card's coming in with haste. Okay, they're like an aggro deck. Let me read the ability. Landfall. Okay, they might have a bit of ramp pieces. They might be trying to get out a lot of lands. Maybe I should hold up a counter spell to stop that, or something like that. And so these are the context clues that you might gain through practice. And so difficulty can be subverted through practice, but that is what difficulty is meant for. It's not just enemies one-shotting you a lot more often. It's not just more health, but it's also maybe new move sets, maybe less resources for you to use. And these can be subverted through practice, just like in card games, in board games, and in different things that we engage with. Difficulty is important. It helps people find something to achieve. It gives you that carrot that you chase. But too much difficulty can be too far. If you don't allow a easier level of access, it can turn a lot of people away, because that's not what they're here for. They might just be getting into a Magic the Gathering format to just get into it and not master it. But, for me, I'm not here to master Standard, but I'm learning Standard to get a little thing on the pulse. I want to be that type of guy that yaps about different Magic formats and maybe just not post gameplay channels. And so the gameplay videos, and I just want to be able to get into every format, play a deck or two, and get the general basis for it. Not master things, but also just know how difficult something can be. Maybe not truly master a deck, but learn things as we go and learn things with you as I play decks. There's plenty of videos that I put out there where a lot of people are in the comments like, oh, you missed this. This is actually a really cool interaction with this. In my highlight videos where maybe I go over a cool interaction, people are like, you completely forgot about in this format, in this situation, this actually changes X thing about that format. That's really cool. Or wow, I actually forgot how important something like that is. And so these are the type of things that I like to explore with you guys, in terms of the difficulty in mastering a certain deck, mastering a format. But when it comes to mastering a game, that's also another element of it that's really fun. Finding that thing in Eldering that you completely miss because an area is too hard. And you're like, that's not really part of the story. I'm not going to go there. I'm just here to experience the game because a bunch of my friends told me it was good. And so stuff like this is really important. You should be able to be rewarded for going the extra mile. But if you didn't want to, you should be rewarded at a baseline experience. You should be able to go through any game and experience it at a difficulty that's accessible, but honestly, one that the developer set for you, because you ultimately purchased a game, you're going through it. The game shouldn't be made easier for you if that was not the intention. If a game is meant to be hard, if you know FromSoft is making a game and they are designing all games that way, then that game is just going to be difficult. They shouldn't have to cater to you, but certain companies will, and that's okay. The gamers that only play the hard games shouldn't have to be mad at other gamers for playing easier games. That's kind of dumb. And so when it comes to difficulty, it's important to have. And I've said that multiple times in this video, but I hope many of you are understanding why. There should be difficult games. There should be easy games. There should be ones in the middle. And we shouldn't be fighting over who gets to have who, because we are in a world where we get to have our cake and eat it too. We get to play so many different games in so many different genres, multiplayer games, single player games, turn-based strategy, Souls-like, so many different types of games, archetypes of games that have different amounts of times that you can sink into them, repeatable games, only one playthrough single player games, new game plus, one version through, whatever. There's so many ways that you can experience games as an art form, as a pastime, as a leisure hobby, whatever it is. And having different difficulties is a great result of that. But also having only one or two difficulties is perfectly fine too, because that is the intended experience. And not every experience needs to be for everyone. Not everyone likes every hobby. Not everyone likes every, slice of cake. But of course, I'm going to use this moment in the video for those of you who actually went this far and are actually, are a fan of me as a person. I hate the people that say, don't include your politics in videos. I think those people need to go F off for all I care, honestly. But really, at the end of the day, when I say this, people are going to take this out of context here, because when I say people can like what they want, that is true when it comes to like the flavor of cake that you like, because that doesn't change the way I exist. And with everything happening in times with potentially, a lot of things happening in the Middle East right now, a lot of scary things over the last couple of days. And based on when I'm recording this, maybe more happens by the time this video posts, and everything going on in the United States and everything, I have very, high-strung views around people that don't agree with certain things like immigration policies and stuff like that, because based on your political leanings, your belief is that I shouldn't exist, or my friends shouldn't exist, or people that I know and love shouldn't exist. And so I don't want to be friends with you, and I shouldn't have to interact with you. In my personal belief, you are terrible people, but I don't think you're a terrible person, truly, if you don't like chocolate cake. And so when people say, I can have friends with differing views, you should learn how to do that, that's bogus. That's kind of garbage doo-doo caca. I think you're actually stupid for thinking that. I don't think you actually know what you're saying. And I feel pity for you, because that is an opinion that doesn't affect anybody's life. You liking chocolate chip cookies versus macadamia nut cookies doesn't change the existence of someone's life. So when it comes to you liking what you want, that's fine. You can experience the video games that you want and the food that you want and whatever, as long as it's not harming other people. But when it comes to opinions about life and our existence, because our existence is political under capitalism, everything is political. Sometimes having an opinion about something is actually bad, and you should question that. And when people say, oh, you can't say anything these days, I wonder why, because maybe your opinion is kind of insane. Maybe you shouldn't be able to repeat your opinion because it's insane. And you haven't had the proper training or education to understand why. So anyway, that's how I'm going to end this conversation around video games. Difficulty should be a thing. You should be able to like what you like as long as it doesn't harm other people. If it harms other people, then we should have a larger discussion about how dumb you're being. Okay. So anyway, love everyone. Trans rights are human rights. Really take a look at our immigration policies as a literal immigrant brown man here. Y'all know where I stand on the immigration policy. And, look, I'm here for human rights. I'm here for human rights. I'm here for the equality of people. Unfortunately, we can't achieve that for so many different reasons. And the solution to that is deeper. But the solution to that isn't just, extremism and wiping people out and wars and all that stuff. I'm here for the well-being, and I stand out for the well-being of many different people. And I hope that comes across in my conversation and my language to all of you. And of course, if you don't agree with anything that I have to say, then I'm happy to have that conversation with you. But if you tell me some garbage about trans rights, aren't human rights and you just come at me with some garbage like that or any other part about immigration or whatever, I don't know if I want to have that conversation with you. But if you're here to talk about video games and stuff that doesn't really have an effect on our human lives in terms of our well-being or overall political aligning, you know, you can like turn-based games and I cannot like turn-based games. I actually didn't before, but now after playing Clair Obscur, like I think I do love turn-based games and I'm going to try a lot of them out. But we can have conversations around that. You know what? Sound off in the comment section down below. What is your favorite turn-based game that you want me to try out that you would think would be amazing for me to try? Again, Persona 3, 4, and 5 is like the next series I want to try out. People have told me Persona 1 and 2 are like such completely different games. They're almost like not worth playing. But yeah, 3, 4, and 5 are games I really want to try out. Kind of in terms of my love for anime and Japanese, RPGs and everything. I do want to eventually want to play the Final Fantasy games, but I might be a little spoiled at this point. I may not enjoy them for what they are, but regardless, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. How do you feel about difficulty in video games? How do you feel about where they should be? Should we include difficulties? Should we different difficulties? Should we not? Do they make you less of a gamer if you don't play the harder difficulties or you only play the easier ones? Sound off in the comment section down below. Have a great weekend, y'all, and I hope y'all are safe and well. And I don't know, just able to enjoy yourselves in such crazy times.